As our guy Mitch has told us, the Chiefs stand atop football's highest summit. And 9 months from today, on February 7th, 2021, Super Bowl 55 will take place in Tampa, where the Chiefs could look to be the first team to go back-to-back in nearly 20 years, since the 04-05 Patriots. They enjoyed 372 days of that picturesque view between their Super Bowl wins. And it just so happens that that's the same number of days between Super Bowl 54 in Miami and Super Bowl 55 in Tampa. But ask any coach and they'll tell you that that's a ways off. But the paths that lead there for all 32 NFL teams will be laid out tonight at 7 p.m. on NFL Network with their 3-hour schedule reveal show. But the Chiefs schedule, those 16 opportunities to run it back, to earn the right to experience everything all over again, they'll be announced right here in about 14 minutes. I'm Chiefs reporter BJ Kissel, and that is voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holtis. And Mitch, making history is what these guys set out to do last year, and it's what they did. The Lamar Hunt Trophy is home. Andy Reid has his ring. And we know they plan on doing it again this year in the Run It Back Tour. So, Mitch, how does tonight get us ready for this journey?
BJ, it feels like a game night. I'm serious. This ought to be like Thursday night football at Arrowhead, because that's what it feels like. We've had a chance to see the schedule, get ready to climb that mountain again, but lace up the boots and sharpen the pickaxe. A brand new climb is coming.
Yeah, we're going to tease the show. We've got the schedule coming up, but we've got a great show for you overall. Chiefs President Mark Donovan will join us here in a few minutes. And a little bit later, after we reveal the schedule, we'll get Tyrann Mathieu's thoughts. So please send him questions in the chat rooms and in our mentions, and we'll get those to him. But he did some fantastic work today with 610 Sports Radio on the Radiothon, and we will ask him about that. We'll also catch up with Andy Reid here in a little bit to get his thoughts on the schedule, which, again, we will release here about 6:30. But there's a whole lot to like about that, as you said, Mitch. But here's one last look at the home and away opponents for the Chiefs this season. Some big-time road games up there, and we'll get those soon with the landlord traveling to collect rent and all. But first, let's bring on Chiefs president and Super Bowl champion Mark Donovan. And welcome, Mark. I know that the first thing that I just want to ask you is just what can you tell us about how things are going right now and what the future might look like?
You know, that sounded really good. Mitch has introduced me a lot of times, but to hear you say Super Bowl champion Mark Donovan feels really good. So thank you.
Everybody. It's for everybody, every time.
Well, a safe, healthy, happy hello to everybody. Thank you, Kingdom, for joining us tonight. It's a pretty special evening, and excited to be a part of it. I just want to give everybody a little bit of an update on, we have and will continue to prepare for the season. We've been doing it carefully. We'll continue to do it diligently, working with outside experts, making sure that we're ready to go and ready to deal with whatever contingency comes our way. We've gotten some great cooperation from Governor Parsons. I was on the phone today with Mayor Lucas, Troy Schulte from Jackson County. And obviously they have much bigger issues than just dealing with our schedule, but the cooperation that they've shown on all the issues and then the support they've shown us has been really, really inspiring. And we're looking forward to working with them and making sure that we are operating under their guidelines, and we'll continue to do that. The key for us is that it's safe for our players, for our coaches, for our fans, for our staff, for everybody involved, and for our fans, obviously. So that's what we're working towards. Really excited to be part of this tonight, though. You guys know it sort of full well. The 4 pillars of our organization: win with character, inspire our fans, and honor tradition. I can't help but be moved by, tonight's another example of how this franchise unites this community. Just to have a second to take a step back and just take a breath. And proud to be part of that, proud to be part of the organization, proud of what Mike Ciccani's put together here and the ability, the innovation that you guys have to be able to do this, but also things you've already done, right? I mean, if you look at the Relive campaign, the Watch Party Wednesdays, 70,000 people live streaming our draft show. It's really cool to see, and it's really inspiring to be part of. So thank you guys for all you guys have done to make this content as compelling as it is. And then, I want to make 2 compliments to our league. the commissioner and the people at the league who work on this, we're on the calls with them almost every day. Number one, their leadership through all this. Came out yesterday with a memo to really help put a plan together that we can all follow, all the franchises can follow, and help us be really prepared for the season. But I think it's important to acknowledge just their awareness of giving us this opportunity tonight, to be able to take advantage of this. And for the first time ever, our fans, members of the kingdom, are going to see our schedule first, even before the NFL releases it. And that's a really cool thing to do, but it's a compliment to the league to have that awareness and understand how valuable it is to us. As you guys have, I've seen the schedule, and I think the fans are going to be really excited about the schedule. I'm excited about the schedule. I think we're not going to be surprised about week one. It'll be fun to reveal that finally. But I do think that it's a great example of this whole league coming together and understanding just what we can do during this time.
Hey, Mark, back to the pillar of uniting the community in these last 60 days in the kingdom. It almost seems like the Chiefs kingdom is galvanized even more. When I say that, I even internally and externally, whether it's player participation or the organization trying to manage this, just how has the kingdom galvanized even since mid-March when all the stay-at-home protocol was announced?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Mitch. All of us, not just the Chiefs, but this entire Kansas City community has come together, and it's been good to be a part of it. We've done a lot that people have heard about with Cornerstones for Care, with Harvesters, teasing the Red Friday flags to raise even more money for Ronald McDonald House just recently. Working really closely with our partners. I was on the phone today with Randy Edeker, the CEO of Hy-Vee, and just hearing the things they've been going through and the way they're dealing with things, the support they've given. They're being nationally recognized for their efforts in this time. I was on the phone with Lisa Ginter, the CEO of Community America. Great example with you guys, actually, with Relive, right? How do we take this campaign and deliver real benefits to our healthcare workers at the University of Kansas Health System? So just, it's part of what we do. We talk about it internally. It's a responsibility as a member of this organization to be active in our community. And it's just another example of how we can all work to do that.
And Mark, on the football side, I want to ask, just because of this environment with the stay-at-home orders and everybody doing everything virtually from rookie minicamp to OTAs and everything forward until there changes at some point, but just how much of that continuity and bringing so many people back, and it's been reported so much of the nucleus and 20 of 22 starters coming back and the coaching staff, how much do you feel like that already helps and gives an advantage to a team as opposed to teams that have new coaches and new players and new quarterbacks and just not getting those reps?
Yeah, year in and year out, we talk about the value of continuity and having a team that can stay together and be together. I think that, this offseason, winning a Super Bowl helped a lot in free agency and not only retaining our guys, but bringing some new guys in. It helps even in the college free agency, right? And we're competing with all these clubs to get them to have them join our team versus another. But it really does play a big role, and we believe it's going to play a big role and be a competitive advantage this season. I know we've talked about it. I talked to a bunch of business leaders. They feel the same way, which is we've all become pretty efficient at this and pretty good at, operating this way. Listening to our, we're obviously in virtual OTAs now, and listening to our coaches and our players talk about, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, this works pretty well. We should continue to do things like that. I think we have an advantage in that they know what they're doing and how to do it, and so there aren't a lot of big changes. So it's an advantage for us.
Mark, before we let you go, I want to ask you, next week's a big week, Healthcare Worker Appreciation Week. These people have been on the front lines for over 2 months. What's going on next week that we can do and help to honor those folks?
Yeah, so when we sat down and started thinking about this show, one of the things we talked about was, how can we pay back? How can we do something to recognize the people who deserve to be recognized? And there are so many special people in this world who are doing so much right now for all of us. I was on the phone today with Bob Page, the CEO of the University of Kansas Health System. And, those people are truly on the front lines, and they've been from the beginning. And we didn't want to ask for money. We didn't want our fans to have to do something else. And so what we're asking tonight is, if you're on this live stream, just take a second tonight and write a thank you note to the people on the front lines, the people who are risking their lives and doing good for all of us and putting their families at risk. And they're showing up every single day, and they're saving lives and making us all safe. So there's a graphic you're going to put up on the screen with our address, and just put attention healthcare workers, and we'll make sure it gets to
Kansas Health System are doing. Mark, we appreciate your time.
Thanks. Have fun tonight, guys.
We are just a few minutes away, I think about 4 minutes away from announcing the schedule. And Mitch, before we announce that schedule, let's talk a few of those key road games. Because I think when you look at that schedule and you look at the home and away opponents, there were 3 games that really stood out. And I want to start and ask you about the game against the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen the schedule. We know when it falls in, but so many people are looking forward to this game because it's the last 2 MVPs of the league. What are you looking forward to in this matchup? And is this the marquee matchup of the NFL season?
I think so. If you polled the folks that follow this league on a day-to-day basis, when you list 1 through 32, it's pretty clear that it's 1 and 2 are probably right now the Chiefs and Ravens, even though they're in the same conference. And so, yes, everybody's looking just beyond the Chiefs Kingdom or Ravens Nation. The rest of the NFL world will be ready for this game.
Yeah, and again, we are going to get Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, the landlord, whatever you want to call him. We're going to get his thoughts on the schedule again here in just about 10 minutes. We'll hear from Honey Badger, the schedule coming out in about 3 minutes. Mitch, one of the other big key road games, the New Orleans Saints. It's a team from the NFC. They went 13-3 last year. When you look top to bottom, just most talented, deepest rosters in the league, the Saints need to be in the top 3 or 4 at minimum in that conversation. This is going to be one of those marquee matchups when you talk about AFC versus NFC.
Well, those first 2 teams I mentioned with the Chiefs and Ravens, right behind them, number 3 is the Saints. And the Chiefs have to go to the Superdome to play them. I don't think there's any real weakness on that team. And when you look at their balance and what they can do, they're very similar to the Chiefs in the way they can attack you in all 3 phases.
Yeah, offensive game. You got Sean Payton, you've got Andy Reid, you've got Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes, Michael Thomas, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. I mean, they're Alvin Kamara. They got weapons all over the place. That one's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then finally, the one that has been the national storyline, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They seem like they're the shiny new object, and for good reason. They've got 2 future Hall of Famers that joined their team this offseason, and Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. They reunite down there to join guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. There are a lot of weapons on that team, Mitch, but you and I have been talking about this a lot. We just talked with Mark about continuity on the coaching staff and on the offensive skill guys. The Bucs don't have that. There's a lot on Bruce Arians in this kind of virtual environment to get this offense up to speed and on the same page as fast as possible with the expectations that it seems like are being placed on those guys right now.
But Bruce Arians is an accomplished offensive coach. Yeah. 2, he's also an accomplished head coach. He's got the experience, not like some of these guys that are getting their first opportunity to coach in the NFL in this environment. But every year, BJ, there's a champion of May. It seems like now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the champions of the NFL of May. They're having a May Day parade right now down the streets of Tampa. But yes, that'll be an anticipated matchup.
Well, we know that I thought the Cleveland Browns were going to do that. Odell Beckham had some comments this week. They've had it the last 2 years, thought he was going to do it again. Seemed like it's going to be the Bucs. But when you talk about the Chiefs, you talk about these key road games. One group and one guy we know is not intimidated is Patrick Mahomes. He's 24 years old. He's 13-4 in his career on the road. And in those games, completing 66% of his passes, Mitch, with 46 touchdowns and just 9 interceptions. And again, this guy's 24 years old. We've talked so much about all the different things that he's done, but this guy's not intimidated to go on the road. And Mitch, at this point, everybody, it's about that time. I guess there's just one thing left to do. as the Chiefs look to become the first team in nearly 2 decades to repeat as Super Bowl champions. Here's the path that lies ahead on the Run It Back Tour. Week 1, it's a rematch of the thrilling AFC divisional game to open the 2020 NFL season. Chiefs are at home against the Texans on Thursday Night Football. It's Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson in prime time, followed by a tough road game against the Los Angeles Chargers and their new digs, and then the marquee matchup on Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens in Week 3. Then they come home to face the Patriots. Mitch, for the first 4 weeks of a season, there's a lot to unpack right there.
BJ, there's only 8 division champions every year. The Chiefs are one of those. 3 of the remaining 7 are on this page. They 3 division champions out of the first 4 games of the year. And yes, Houston will be the team that opens things up at Arrowhead Stadium, but I can't think of a tougher schedule probably. We'll see the rest of the league revealed here in a little bit, but this is a challenge as you climb back up that mountain.
That's going to be a storyline, and we will get to more of that a little bit later in the show. But when you look at the Texans also, you look at how their season ended last year with the playoff loss, the 24-point lead that dissipated, then they end up losing that game. They start their season, they go right back onto that same field, coming to Arrowhead in prime time. And you think about all the moves they made this offseason with Bill O'Brien, that they're going to be right there in the national spotlight starting off. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins, any more DJ Readers left. They made the trade for Brandon Cooks, so a lot there. But moving along to the second quarter of the season, Mitch, the Chiefs host the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 5 before traveling east to face the upstart Bills on a short week for Thursday Night Football. Then they head back out west the following week to take on Drew Lock and the Broncos before hosting the Jets at home in Week 8. Mitch, there's a lot to unpack right here, but the intriguing one to me is the short week against the Bills. I got my eye on that one.
Every time a schedule comes out, I always look at the Thursday night games. Who do the Chiefs play? Where do they play them? When do they play them? Under Andy Reid, the Chiefs are 4-4 on Thursday Night Football, but they're 3-2 on the road. And remember, Buffalo was this close to being that first opponent last year in the playoffs, not Houston. Deshaun Watson had to make a Houdini Mahomes-like play to beat Buffalo. I think Buffalo will be one of the most improved teams in the league.
Yeah, and the Bills, they've got to feel good about what they've done this offseason. They made the big trade to bring over Stephon Diggs, to give their young quarterback, Josh Allen, a new weapon. And this is a division that they've got to feel like they've got a legitimate chance to go out and capture, because Tom Brady's no longer with the New England Patriots. You know they still got Bill Belichick. You know they're going to be in the mix. But this is a group that they're trying to win the division for the first time since 1995. I mean, the Patriots have won the AFC East 16 of the last 17 seasons. So let's make no mistake, for the Buffalo Bills, this will be a measuring stick type of game as they face the Chiefs. It's kind of like their Super Bowl before they take that next step. But Mitch, let's move on to the third quarter of the season. And that begins on November 8th as the Chiefs host former Baylor head coach Matt Rule and Panthers' new starting quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Then they've got their bye in Week 10. And then it's back-to-back road games against the Raiders in Las Vegas in the Death Star for the first time ever. And then the game that a lot of people are looking forward to, that we touched on earlier, traveling to Florida to take on Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and all those offensive weapons in Week 12 before hosting the Broncos on Sunday Night Football in Week 13. And there's going to be a lot made of this third quarter of the schedule, because nationally it's going to be Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Patrick Mahomes, but locally, because you and I talk about this all the time, it's about home division football games. So that game against the Broncos is key for me.
Yeah, and the Chiefs will travel 2,825 miles in 2 weeks with one of those ping pong back and forths by going to Las Vegas and then going to Tampa in back-to-back weeks. But now all of a sudden I feel this rush of people going, well, we're going to take advantage of all these great opportunities that are out there to travel, and we're going to Las Vegas. There could be 50,000 Chiefs fans at that Raiders game in Week 11.
Yeah, we know Chiefs fans always travel well anyway, but if I was a fan, I was traveling. It would be at the top of my list. It would be arguing with whoever I'm going with. That is going to be one of those 2 games that you were talking about. But let's go to the fourth quarter. And the one interesting thing in looking at this is that there's just one AFC West game in the Final 4. But that starts with the road game against the Miami Dolphins in Week 14. And then you've got the final road game of the season down in the Bayou, taking on the New Orleans Saints, before back-to-back home games to close it out against the Atlanta Falcons and the Los Angeles Chargers, which is pretty familiar territory for us, Mitch.
Bundle up. It's the 6th straight season. The Chiefs will have 3 home after December 1st. But the Chiefs are 12-2 in their last 14 December games. We know in the Chiefs Kingdom how much those games mean, and the Chiefs have been able to respond in those games in that last quarter of the regular season.
So that is the Chiefs 2020 schedule. And Mitch, when we look at this from a global perspective, it's easy to do, and we know we're going to catch up with Reid later. He's going to be focused in on week 1. So let's talk about week 1 real fast and just going up against the Houston Texans, which is just going to be one of these emerging rivalries with Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it's a pseudo rivalry to me because as long as Watson is with the Texans and Pat's with us, those two will be linked together through all time. And now all of a sudden you're getting frequency of games with a non-division opponent. It seems like we're playing them every year or twice a year, as it were, because we've had playoff games against them. So, yes, this is feels like a rivalry game on that Thursday night opener, even though it's not a division rival.
Yeah, when the schedule comes out, the other thing that we always look at are primetime games. The Chiefs have 5 primetime games this year, 2 of those being at Arrowhead, a Thursday nighter to open up the season like we mentioned, and that Sunday night Week 13 game against the Broncos. But you know that another game could get flexed with those rules later in the season. But this is a team that the NFL, wants under the lights. They want them in primetime, obviously being the defending Super Bowl champs. It should be exciting. It's a good tailgate schedule for the Chiefs also because they got that 3:25 Patriots game early in the season. That's prime tailgating time early in the season when the weather's nice.
And you get 6 primetime games. You can't have any more than that. But that feels like that New Orleans Week 15 game. That feels like a Sunday night football game to me. I know it's at 3:25 now, but I feel a flex coming on perhaps and putting that baby on Sunday night. But I think it's a safe bet to say the Chiefs will be on primetime 6 times, even though they have 5 scheduled now.
And we're going to catch up with Tyrann Mathieu here in just a few minutes. But, Mitch, the other thing I want to ask you about, because I know when talking with players, the first thing they always look at when the schedule comes out is the bye week. It's like, where does the bye week fall? And I like the fact that it's always later. I like when it's later in the season, and week 10 seems like a sweet spot for me. You've been doing this a long time. Where do you like the bye week to fall in just on how the season all comes together?
This is a really good spot for it. I thought last year it was too late. I mean, the Chiefs were tired. They gutted through that game in Mexico City. That was go back and watch our watch party Wednesday. But this is a 2 weeks prior to that, so I think it's almost perfect. Keep in mind that you've been at training camp. Ideally you want it the middle of the regular season, but if you're going to be a postseason team, this becomes kind of the regular middle of the season with postseason play. So I think it's perfectly placed there in Week 10.
The other thing you got to like, and I know the players like, and the coaches are like, all the support staff standing on the sidelines are going to like, is you go to Buffalo, that's on the schedule. You get to go in October. You don't have to go there in December. And then knowing when it gets colder in Kansas City, then you head south late in November, going down to New Orleans, going to Tampa Bay and Miami later in the season when it's cold in Kansas City. I don't mind that at all.
People I'm telling you, now the schedule's out, they are making their travel plans. Because there are some awesome destinations here for the Chiefs Kingdom, and we know how they travel. And so, hey, you know what? Who'll be there waiting for him will be the Kingdom landlord, because he's going to say, bring my people in here. Let's go attack whomever we're playing on the road.
He is ready to collect some rent, whether it's at home, whether he's got to go on the road to do it. Let's bring on Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann, welcome. You have had a busy day. We're going to get to your radiothon here in a second, but I've got to ask, when you check out this schedule, what was the first thing that jumped out to you, and what do you like about how it lays out for you guys on this Run It Back tour?
Yeah, I think anytime you look at the schedule, I think for me personally, I always look forward to the first game. Doesn't necessarily matter who the opponent is. You just want to make sure that you're ready for that first game. And then obviously you drift towards to see, if you're going to be prime time, and then you kind of get a glimpse of who's going to be on the schedule, come real football season, late December, January. So I always look forward to just playing against really quality opponents, and we got quite a few of them this year. So we'll have our hands full. So I'm looking forward to it.
Tyrann, the more I get to know you, the more I know you're destined to be a coach, man. The way you look at the world is like a coach. And I'm going to ask Coach here in a little bit these things, but I want to ask you, getting ready to play, because out of the gate now, there are 3 division champions from last year and a road division opponent. Getting this team ready to play from the get-go, leaving the starting blocks What about preparing, using every day to get ready for the start?
Yeah, people have been asking me a lot lately. How can we get better? I look back at last season, especially defensively, and I probably say we could have got off to a way better start defensively. We could have played, way faster. We could have played more sound in the run game, so I think that's what you look forward to. And I'm sure we'll have, our hands full. We got Baltimore, peeked at the schedule, saw Baltimore in there early on. So I think the Chargers are going to be a great team. And then obviously Houston, anytime, any franchise has a quarterback with Deshaun Watson ability, I think they're always going to be in decent shape. So I think the ability for us to start fast this year, I think it's higher than it's ever been, given, the run we just came off, winning the championship. So I think going forward, it's all about getting my guys ready to play week one. So I'll take on that responsibility.
Tyrann, I got to ask you, and you knew that it was on the schedule. The Chiefs were going to travel down to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Yeah. And now that it's on the schedule, December 20th, later in the season, as a guy who's passionate, who has so much pride for your hometown and where you come from, just what's that game going to mean to you? And can you even put into words what those feelings are going to be like when you run out that tunnel at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome?
Yeah, I mean, it's always special. I can remember my first time, playing down there, as a rookie. The Saints beat us up pretty bad, but I was able to get my first career interception in the Superdome. So I think anytime I get a chance to go home, play against people that have really watched me growing up, since I was a little kid, a knucklehead in some senses, it's always refreshing for me. And then also to play against guys that are representing my community well, Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and guys that I know, when I'm not in New Orleans, these guys are the leaders. They're giving the young kids that look up to me hope. So I always enjoy competing against those guys. I always take great pride in it. And I'm looking forward to us, being a better team this time around.
And that's about the time the LSU will be celebrating another SEC championship. Yes, so it'll fit right in for it really good. But I want to ask you the energy that you feel when Chief Kingdom fans travel. You saw that last year. We know what Arrowhead is like, but all of a sudden now these fans are flocking to these road games. What does that do for you?
I think it does a lot. For us, I think it does a lot for our, energy level, especially, on the road. A lot of times on the road, being a visiting team, it's kind of hard to get into it. It's kind of hard to fill the stadium, man. I think anytime you can have fans that travel well, that bring your culture with you on the road, it always makes everywhere you go feel like home. And it does wonders for the football team. So, and I think that's why fans are so important. That's why they mean so much to the game, especially when they travel. So I always look forward to seeing Chiefs Kingdom, when we're on the road, because they do travel so well.
And Tyrann, speaking of Chiefs Kingdom and those fans, we've got a question from one of them on Facebook in the chat room. This is from Winston and Lily. It's kind of a loaded question, but they ask, which team are you most excited to play next season?
I mean, for me, it'll probably be, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think anytime you get a chance to play against some of the greatest players to ever play the game, I always look at that as a great challenge. I think for me, it's a little deeper than that, going against some of my old ball coaches, when I first came into the National Football League, and Todd Bowles, Bruce Arians. So, and even, some of the young pups, that they have on their team that look up to me. So that I'm pretty sure are going to be trying to steal nuggets from me as we go. But I got to be mindful of how often I give out these nuggets to these guys.
Save some of it. Are you going to talk any kind of trash to Coach Arians before that game?
I'll probably give him a big hug, to be honest, man. He done so much for me, really gave me so much confidence and really courage coming into the National Football League, being a young kid with some issues and, having a pocket full of money. He was somebody I could really lean on. So I'll probably give him a big hug, but I know for sure he's going to try me deep. and it's probably going to be a double move of some sort like that. So I'm trying to vision it right now so I can make the play, come December.
You're trying to bait him right now is what you're trying to do. You're hoping he listens and you can play off of it and you can bait him. But Tyrann, we got another question from the comments. It's from YouTube, and Patrick Reynolds said, Tyrann, what do you think about the change in personnel on defense and the rookies that are coming into your squad?
Yeah, I don't really necessarily see it as a change in personnel. I think if anything, I think it's really lifting the personnel. I think anytime you can, add guys with speed, versatility. I talked earlier with Mitch about, just having guys on the outside that can run down the field, but also be aggressive, in the run game. And, we talked about being a better defense, and I think having guys like that on the perimeter and in the back end of your defense, guys that are willing tacklers, I think all of those things, go into effect when you're talking about becoming a better run defense and then becoming a better defense overall. So I think the pieces we've added definitely going to help us. And I think it's going to help us, especially later in the season, as these guys continue to get better, continue to get more coaching, and then continue to play in big games.
Tyrann, I'm going to revisit the podcast you did with Sean Barber and me, because I want to ask you, because we were talking about being more explosive on defense, and you said we have to be better on the ball, meaning creating one or two explosive defensive plays, either pick six or scoop and score. The Denver game totally changed last year because of it. What about becoming more that way defensively?
Well, I think we have the guys to do it. I think if you look at our personnel, you will see that we have guys up front that could create strip sack, fumbles. If we look at our guys on the back end, you probably say those guys could, catch an interception and score a touchdown. And I think that's the standard. And I think that's the one that we have to live up to this season if we want to take the next step defensively. So, I mentioned me, dropping a handful of interceptions, and but you look at those as opportunities with, just me having a ball in my hands, creating opportunity for the offense. So I think the more guys you have that are able to create turnovers, they're able to get their hands on the ball, I think it does wonders for the team. I don't think many teams want Patrick Mahomes with 4 or 5 extra possessions.
Tyrann, we just had Watch Party Wednesday this past week, and actually yesterday, and we did the Chargers game down in Mexico City, and we saw you make some plays, but the one that we know that you won't forget was the cookie. The cookie came out. Yeah. I apologize for bringing it up, but we'll end on a better note. Before we let you go, I want to ask about the amazing partnership that you had with 610 Sports Radio and the Radiothon that you guys did today. Had all kinds of teammates, all kinds of influencers, and other professional athletes in the Kansas City area for COVID-19 relief and just helping out. Just what sparked that, and just what gave you this drive, knowing you haven't been in the community all that long, to insert yourself and help out the way that you are right now?
Well, BJ, every year I do a kickball tournament. And so next weekend was actually supposed to be, that tournament. So, but anyway, I'm very fortunate and definitely grateful to have, people at 610 Sports Radio to really offer this platform for me, to be able to have my teammates call in and, have coaches call in, former coaches call in. And then on top of that, I think I've partnered with some great beneficiaries, the BMA Foundation and, everything that they represent, Restart, Hope House. I think all these foundations give, animals, young people, women, children, just everybody. I think these foundations fight for everybody. So, I mean, for me, it was an easy choice to try to be a reflection on those beneficiaries within Kansas City. And, like I mentioned, I'm just grateful that my teammates supported, my coaches supported. And it's been a great turnout. So I think we're close to $100,000 right now. And wow. So, awesome. And that's not counting necessarily silent auctions and different things like that. So again, I'm grateful because this money will definitely help out the people of Kansas City. So, and like we mentioned, they do so much for us. They travel so well. I don't think a lot of people realize how much everyday people invest in football. And so I think it's important for us, especially guys like myself, to always reflect on that and never forget that. So, I'm so grateful for all the people of Kansas City. Thank you.
And trust me, as somebody who lives in this community, grew up in this community, I can speak on behalf of all of us. We appreciate and are grateful for you and for Brett Veach and everybody here bringing you in here and what you've done. Tyrann, we appreciate your time. Keep staying safe and keep leading these guys. Let's try to run this back one more time, all right?
Thank you. Appreciate it, fellas.
All right. That is Tyrann Mathieu and Mitch. We've got just a couple of minutes before we're going to bring on Coach Reid to help us break down this schedule. But let's spend a couple of minutes here just talking AFC West, because you and I have both, we get the stats, we have all the sheets, we come up with all the numbers about how good we've been against the AFC West, winning 27 of our last 29 overall. And then just Patrick Mahomes, he's 12-1. He doesn't really know, struggling against the division. It really hasn't been discussed enough, I don't think, the domination that Andy Reid and the Chiefs team has had since he came over to Kansas City just back in 2013.
Yeah, and that one loss is a 29-28 loss on a 2-point conversion. So when you look at what Andy Reid has done in 7 years, 32-10 against the AFC West, 27 of the last 30. The Chiefs have not lost a Sunday division game since November the 30th of 2014. It's really an understated stat in the league how dominant the Chiefs have been in this division.
Yeah, and let's take a look at the three teams in the division, starting with the Denver Broncos. And you see some of the additions and departures. Guys like Chris Harris are no longer on the team, but they did make some moves in the draft, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, to give Drew Lock some weapons with Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, two receivers. Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama, KJ Hamler out of Penn State. And they're trying to help grow an offense so they can break this streak of the Chiefs having won 9 straight against them in the division.
It's got to be driving them crazy. But I think we'd mentioned this during draft weekend. I think the Broncos have said, hey, we're going to try to elevate, get up to, we got to get to 30 points to do it, but also get Melvin Gordon. And what they did with the addition of their interior offensive line tells me they will also try to attack between the guards and the tackles.
Yeah, Graham Glasgow in free agency, and then Lloyd Cushenberry was an underrated guy that they drafted. I know you and I both spoke about the LSU center, but let's move on to the the Las Vegas Raiders. Just ding me. We need to have like a kangaroo court on that. But you look at the Las Vegas Raiders.
Their reservations. They're going to Vegas, man. They know it's down there, at week 11. They're ready to roll.
Yeah, that was one of the first games that fans were going to look at. But you look at the Raiders, they were kind of similar as the Broncos in that they wanted to give more skill positions, more just dynamic threats on the offensive side of the ball when they drafted Henry Ruggs. And they know they got to score more points. The 2 games last year against the Chiefs, we outscored the Raiders 68-19. They know that that's not going to get done. And as much as they want to bring down that 68, they know there's a better chance that they try to extend that 19 points to try to keep up with Patrick Mahomes in this offense.
I got to give these guys credit, though. I think they've stacked 2 good draft classes now back-to-back. Josh Jacobs is really good. And then when you look at guys they've got value, like Max Crosby is going to be a steady player in this league for a long time. And then what they added with this draft class, particularly Ruggs, because he reminds me a lot of McCole Hardman.
Yeah, and finally, let's close it off with the Chargers. Chiefs have won 11 of 12 against them, but they have no Melvin Gordon, and they don't have Phillip Rivers. Number 17 won't be back there. That's a huge change for this team, obviously.
Who's going to play tackle for this team? They also have added some good pieces. The move they made to get Murray on draft night, on the first night, was, I thought, really good. Up the middle defensively, they still have Ingram and Bosa, but, man, Darwin James and now Murray in the middle make them really good there. But who's going to block for that offense? And if it's Tyrod Taylor to set the tone for Herbert, they've got to protect him, or otherwise the Chiefs will have 9 sacks on these guys.
Yeah, you see it on that graphic right there. They signed Brian Bulaga, and they made the trade with the Panthers to bring over Trey Turner. So now it's time to bring in the Super Bowl champion winning head coach, Andy Reid, to help us break down this schedule. All right, Coach, starting things off, I just got to know, when the schedule comes out, I know you get excited anyway, but just how does your level of excitement go up another notch when you see the path laid out for you guys when the schedule comes out?
Yeah, so I think we all get excited, and it might not be necessarily the way the schedule is set up as much as it is just to find out when you're playing these teams. We kind of know who we're playing, we just don't know when. And you always you go to that prime time. What games do you get there? Your Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night. When do those happen? And who are you playing in those times? Obviously, so. And then you kind of go through and you break it up in quarters. You go, all right, first quarter, who do you have? Second, and so you got the 4 quarters actually with the 16 games, and seeing exactly what you've got. And even the preseason, I mean, you still have to look at that too. So, which will be here in a minute. This thing will fly here as we go.
Coach, that being said, looking at these first 4 games, well, first of all, you won 11 straight September games. You worked so hard to get this team prepared to hit out of the gate quickly, but you got 3 division champions in these first 4 games. What about preparing your team right away, particularly in this virtual world we're in?
Yeah, how great's that though, man? I mean, you talk about having something that gets your attention, like right now. I mean, that gets your attention. And so, if you weren't paying attention on these virtual installs that we have, you better pay attention, doggone it, because we got some good teams coming up. But I think it's a positive thing, and our guys have attacked this whole deal with with the virtual installs, the scheme evals that we did, all the plays from last year that we can learn from for this year. The guys have gone back and it's been 100% attendance, which is ridiculous. I mean, these guys are into it. They want to learn. And then we get to add the rookies in this thing as we go here. So on the next go round, which is also exciting. We did have a 3-day virtual rookie mini camp where we could also do some installs with them and get them caught up sort of on where they need to be.
Coach, I know that you're focused on week 1, that's how you're wired. That's how you've always been wired. But when the schedule does come out, when you've looked at the schedule, what is it that stood out about this year's schedule in particular?
Yeah, well, they're all different, right? Every year is different. I would tell you what you said. It starts off with some good football teams. They're all good in this league, but I mean, guys that have been champions in their division. So you're ready right away. That catches your attention. You always look for, am I going to be playing in Green Bay or Buffalo in December? You look at those things. What home games you have, when you look at that, your division opponent, the AFC West. When do you play the AFC West? How does that work out? Are you home? You away? What part of the season are you in? And so on. You look at those things. Now, does all that matter? I don't know if it all matters, but it's kind of fun to look at.
The other thing you've been able to do is close strong. When you look at December, you're 12-2 in the last 14 December games. The reason I ask is it seems like even now you try to build depth and conditioning to train your team for a long, tough season. What about training your team to be a good December team?
Yeah, well, that's important. I mean, like I said, you've got 4 quarters. You can kind of relate that to the players. And that last quarter, we're going to condition you during camp, and then Barry's going to take you through the season so that you can finish strong. You can be in a position physically and mentally where you can finish the season up strong. You can still learn. You're not so beat up that your mind's shot and your body's shot, that those 2 things come together and they're still working in unison once the last part of the season takes place.
Coach, we appreciate your time. As you mentioned, you get Buffalo in October, but then you get New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Miami late November, December. That worked out pretty well. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, guys. Be safe. Thanks, Anna.
Good stuff there from Coach Reid. And let's take one look at the preseason schedule right here in the Chiefs' new home of preseason football, KSHB 41 Action News.
And the Cincinnati game coming back being fun. The Dallas game will also be fun. Here's the deal. People are going, well, wait a minute. What about times and dates? That's still being negotiated. Remember, in the preseason, the 2 franchises negotiate that. So stay tuned for more details.
Yeah, and don't forget, the NFL Network is announcing all 32 teams' schedules are being announced beginning at 7 p.m. on NFL Network. So you want to check that out. They've got a 3-hour special. Mitch, as we wind up this show, do you have any final thoughts?
You look at this schedule, I'm thinking start fast, finish strong, climb the mountain, and run it back. Here we go. Let's do this.
Single game and group tickets go on sale tomorrow. Head to Chiefs.com to get that info. Chiefs Kingdom, the path is set. The tour now has dates and times. And as Coach mentioned, the guys are already working. It's time to run it back, as Mitch said. For Mitch Holtis, Anna Topkin, and everyone involved, I'm BJ Kissel. Thanks for watching.